My mother-in-law announced my miscarriage at a dinner party just to get some prayers, but she didn't realize I was about to announce her 7-year affair at her own anniversary gala. She spent weeks telling everyone I was mentally unstable to hide the truth, but she forgot one thing: I had the keys to her closet, and her burner phone had all the receipts. Before I show you the moment she fell face-first into her own anniversary cake while the whole town watched her secrets go viral, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe, because you're about to see the ultimate definition of instant karma. It started on a Tuesday, a day that was supposed to be just another shift at the office. I was 12 weeks along. We had already picked out names. We had a Pinterest board for the nursery. I was sitting at my desk when I felt it, that sudden, terrifying warmth running down my leg. I remember freezing, my heart dropping into my stomach. I ran to the restroom, and when I saw the blood soaking through my dress, I felt like the world had just ended. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. I called my husband, Ethan, and I was full-on hyperventilating. "Ethan, something's wrong. There's so much blood. Please, come get me right now." "I'm on my way, babe." "Stay put." "I'm coming," he said. I could hear him fumbling for his keys, the sound of his office door slamming. He sounded like the man I'd fallen in love with, the protector. But that version of Ethan didn't stay long. By the time we got to the ER, it was too late. The doctors used all those clinical words. Spontaneous. Chromosomal. "There was nothing you could have done, Clara," they said. But those words are a joke when you're staring at an empty screen where a heartbeat used to be. Ethan sat on the edge of the hospital bed, his face buried in his hands, crying like I'd never seen him cry before. I reached out, my own heart shattered, and whispered, "I'm so sorry, Ethan." He looked up, his eyes red and raw. "Don't. This isn't on you. It's not your fault." He pulled me into his chest, and for a few minutes, I felt safe. I felt like we were a team. I told him right then, "I can't handle your mother right now. Please, Ethan. No one needs to know yet. I need time to breathe." Ethan nodded, kissing the top of my head. "I get it, Clara. My mom can be a lot. We'll keep it between us. No one needs to know until you're ready." I deadass believed him. I really did. But I forgot one tiny detail: Ethan's mother, Eleanor, didn't believe in boundaries. She had a key to our house from when we went on our honeymoon, and she used it like she was the one paying the mortgage. 3 days later, I was a total wreck. I was sitting on the kitchen floor, clutching a tiny yellow onesie I'd bought just a week before. I was crying so hard I didn't even hear the front door open. Well, a sharp, judgy voice boomed from the doorway. "This is quite a scene." I looked up, and there was Eleanor. She was holding bags of organic groceries, her lips pressed into that thin, annoying line of disapproval she always wore when I didn't meet her standards. She looked at the tissues all over the floor, then at the empty ice cream carton on the counter. "Clara, for heaven's sake. I assumed when Ethan said you weren't feeling well, it was a cold or something minor. Not a complete emotional breakdown in the middle of the day." She stepped over me, literally stepped over me, to put the bags on the counter. She turned around, and her eyes locked onto the yellow onesie in my hand. Her expression went from annoyed to high-key suspicious in 2 seconds. "Is that baby clothes? Why are you sitting on the floor crying over a onesie, Clara?" I didn't want to tell her. My gut was screaming at me to keep my mouth shut. But I was exhausted, empty, and just wanted her to leave. I felt like I was drowning, and the words just spilled out. "I lost the baby, Eleanor. 3 days ago. We weren't ready to tell anyone. Please, just. I need to be alone." Eleanor's face shifted. It wasn't real sympathy, it was that fake, church lady look where they're already calculating how much clout they can get from your tragedy. She sat down on the floor next to me and grabbed my hands. Her grip was tight, almost painful. "Oh, honey. That explains the moodiness. I knew something was off with you, but I just thought you were being difficult again. I'm not being difficult, I snapped, pulling my hands away. I'm grieving. I know, she said, her voice dripping with that condescending honey. And I'm sure you're blaming yourself. The doctors always say these things just happen, but we both know how much stress you've been under. I told Ethan months ago that you were working too many hours. You're not exactly known for putting family first, are you? I felt like she'd slapped me. The doctor said it wasn't anything I did, Eleanor. Of course he did, sweetie. They have to say that, she said, patting my knee like I was a child. But what's done is done. No point in crying over it now. But you know, the family, they've been waiting for a grandchild for so long. It's a bit selfish to keep them in the dark just because you're embarrassed about a little failure. I am not embarrassed, I whispered. I am hurt. Please, don't tell anyone. You promised. She put her hand over her heart, looking all pious. Clara, I would never betray your trust. I swear on my marriage, this stays between us. But I really think you need to get out of this house. You're wallowing. That Friday, Eleanor called Ethan and told him she was hosting a small family dinner. She said we needed to be around people who loved us. Ethan begged me to go. Come on, Clara. It's just my parents and my siblings. Mom says she wants to support us. It'll be low-key. I should have known. Low-key, in Eleanor's world didn't exist. When we pulled up to her house, there were 15 cars in the driveway. My heart started racing. Ethan, you said immediate family. I guess she invited a few more people, he said, not even looking at me. Just get through it, okay? For me. We walked in, and it was a full-blown event. 30 people were milling around the dining room. Eleanor floated toward us in a cream-colored silk dress, looking like she was the guest of honor. She rushed over, grabbed my face in her hands, and said loudly enough for the entire room to hear, "Oh, you poor thing. You look absolutely exhausted. Have you even slept? You have such dark bags under your eyes." I felt 30 pairs of eyes swing toward me. The room went quiet as people started whispering. I felt like a bug under a microscope. Dinner was even worse. I sat there picking at my salad while people kept shooting me these weird, pitying looks. Halfway through the main course, Eleanor stood up and tapped her wine glass with a spoon. The room went dead silent. I need everyone's attention, she said, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. Tears started rolling down her cheeks perfectly on cue. I need your prayers. My son and Clara just lost their first baby. My heart is absolutely shattered into a million pieces for them. I'm trying to be the strong grandmother, but it's just so hard. The air left the room. People gasped. Some of the aunts started crying. I felt like I was going to throw up. Eleanor sat back down, leaned over, and squeezed my hand under the table. She whispered, "You should really smile, Clara. People are going to think you don't appreciate them being here for you." I looked at Ethan. He was staring at his plate, his face red. He didn't say a word. He didn't defend me. He didn't remind her that she'd promised to keep it a secret. He just sat there. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just dealing with a monster of a mother-in-law, I was dealing with a husband who was a total mama's boy. The car ride home was a nightmare. I waited 10 minutes, staring out the window, my blood boiling. Ethan, your mother just announced our private tragedy to 30 people. She lied to me. He tightened his grip on the wheel, his knuckles white. She was just trying to help, Clara. She thought you needed a support system. She's emotional, she's a grandma, she's grieving too. She isn't grieving. She's clout chasing with my miscarriage. I yelled. She wanted an audience. And you didn't say a single word. Ethan pulled into the driveway and killed the engine. He didn't look at me. I need you to apologize to her tomorrow, Clara. I blinked, thinking I'd misheard him. Come again. Apologize for what? You were cold to her all night, he said, finally looking at me with this soft, patronizing expression. You didn't thank her for the dinner. You sat there looking miserable and made her feel like she'd done something wrong. She called me crying on the way home, saying she thinks you hate her. You're being unreasonable. She was just asking for prayers. I'm mad because she betrayed me, Ethan. She made a mistake because she cares too much, he sighed, rubbing his eyes. Giving her the silent treatment was cruel. Just call her tomorrow and say you're sorry. Please, for the sake of peace. I walked into the house and slammed the bedroom door. He followed me, badgering me until I told him to get out. He ended up sleeping in the guest room, and honestly, I was glad. I didn't want him anywhere near me. The next morning, I woke up to my phone vibrating off the nightstand. I had 17 texts. All of them were from Ethan's extended family. His aunt asked if I was okay, because Eleanor had called her worried about my mental stability. His cousin asked if I needed a professional to talk to because Eleanor told everyone I was acting erratic. I found Ethan in the kitchen and shoved my phone in his face. Look at this. She's telling everyone I'm crazy. She's building a narrative, Ethan. He glanced at the screen and shrugged. She's just worried, Clara. You haven't been yourself. You're acting paranoid. I am not paranoid. She is gaslighting the entire family. Listen to yourself, he said, his voice calm and condescending. You sound unhinged. My mom loves you. She's trying to get you help, and you're treating her like a villain. 3 days later, things went from bad to worse. I was at work, trying to keep it together, when a coworker, Sarah, stopped me in the break room. She looked super uncomfortable. Clara, is everything okay at home? Your mother-in-law came to my church's prayer group last night. She was crying, asking everyone to pray for you. She said you weren't taking care of yourself and she was worried you might hurt yourself. I felt the floor tilt. Eleanor had gone to my coworker's church. She was telling strangers I was suicidal. She was documenting my breakdown so that if I ever tried to stand up for myself, no one would believe a word I said. When I told Ethan that night, he actually agreed with her. Babe, I think you should see a therapist, he said. Mom knows a great one from her church. She thinks you're not processing the loss in a healthy way. And honestly, I'm starting to think she's right. You're obsessed with this feud that doesn't exist. That was the night Ethan officially moved into the guest room. He said he needed space because I was refusing to get help. I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling, realizing that in less than 2 weeks, Eleanor had taken everything from me. My baby was gone, my husband thought I was crazy, and the whole town was looking at me like I was one step away from a padded cell. And Eleanor? She was the star of the show. She posted a photo on Facebook that night, a picture of her hugging me at that horrible dinner, her eyes closed, looking all saintly. The caption said, "Please pray for my sweet daughter-in-law. She's struggling so much, but our family will get her through this. #FamilyFirst #PrayerWarrior." It had 200 likes. I sat in my dark kitchen, looking at that photo, and something in me finally snapped. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to be the victim. Eleanor thought she was a genius at manipulation, but she'd made one huge mistake. She thought I was too unstable to fight back. 2 weeks later, the opportunity dropped right into my lap. Eleanor called, her voice sweet as sugar. "Clara, honey. I'm so overwhelmed. Arthur and I are having our 30th anniversary gala this weekend, and with Arthur out of town for work, I can't do it all myself. You'll come help me set up, won't you? It would mean so much for the family to see us working together." I knew why she was asking. She wanted to show me off like a reformed prisoner. She wanted people to see her helping the crazy daughter-in-law. I said yes. Ethan was so happy. See? Mom wants to move past this. This is a good step, Clara. I drove to her house on Saturday morning. For 3 hours, I ironed tablecloths and folded napkins into swans while she sat on the sofa, barked orders, and trash-talked my lack of attention to detail. Around noon, she sent me upstairs. Go into my master closet, Clara. There are extra chairs in the back. Make sure you don't touch anything else. I have things organized perfectly. I went upstairs, my heart heavy. I walked into her massive walk-in closet. It was basically the size of my living room. I pushed past the racks of designer clothes and found the chairs. But as I was pulling one out, I knocked over a shoebox on the top shelf. It fell, and dozens of receipts scattered across the floor. I knelt down to pick them up, and my breath hitched. These weren't grocery receipts. They were for high-end jewelry. A diamond tennis bracelet. Pearl earrings. A gold necklace that cost more than my car. I'd never seen Eleanor wear any of this. She always wore the same, classic, pieces Arthur had given her. Then, I heard it. A muffled buzzing. I looked over at Eleanor's nightstand. She'd left her phone upstairs. I should have walked away. I really should have. But I saw the notification on the screen. It was a text from someone named Deacon Silas. There was a heart emoji next to his name. The preview read, "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about the way you looked at me. Kenneth has no idea how lucky he isn't." My blood went cold. Silas? Deacon Silas was the lead deacon at her church. The man who always sat next to her at potlucks. The man who always led the prayers for faithful marriages. I picked up the phone. Her passcode was her anniversary date. I typed it in, and it opened immediately. I went to the messages. It wasn't just one text. It was 7 years of them. I miss you already. Arthur is so boring, he doesn't touch me like you do. I wish I'd married you instead. There were photos. Photos of Eleanor in lingerie I'd never seen. Photos of her and Silas in hotel rooms with timestamps from dates I recognized. Their 25th anniversary trip to Napa. She'd spent half of it in a different hotel with Silas while Arthur was at a business seminar. Last Christmas Eve. She told us she had a migraine and went to bed early. The texts showed she'd snuck out to meet him in the church parking lot. I felt the floor shifting again, but this time, it wasn't from grief. It was from power. This woman had spent weeks destroying my life, calling me unstable and unfaithful to everyone who would listen. And all the while, she was the biggest hypocrite in the county. I pulled out my own phone. My hands were steady now. I started taking pictures. I photographed the texts. I photographed the jewelry receipts, gifts from Silas that she kept hidden in her closet like trophies. I photographed the hotel reservations. I sent everything to my private email and then deleted the sent items. I put her phone back, grabbed the chairs, and walked downstairs. Eleanor was still on the couch, looking at her nails. "About time," she snapped. "What took you so long?" I smiled at her. A real, genuine smile for the first time in weeks. "Sorry, Eleanor. I just wanted to make sure everything was organized perfectly." "You're right, the family really is the most important thing, isn't it?" She looked at me, confused by my sudden change in mood. "Well, I'm glad you're finally coming to your senses, Clara. Just try to keep it together for the gala. 200 people are coming to celebrate a real marriage." "Oh, I wouldn't miss it for the world," I said. "I'm going to make sure it's a night no one ever forgets." I drove home that afternoon, my phone full of the truth. Eleanor thought she had won. She thought she had buried me. But she didn't realize that I was done being the crazy daughter-in-law. I was about to become her worst nightmare. The gala was in 6 days. 200 guests. A projector screen for the legacy slideshow. A microphone for the toasts. I had 6 days to plan the perfect reveal. Ethan came home that night and saw me humming while I made dinner. "You're in a good mood," he said, looking surprised. "I had a productive day at your mom's," I said, handing him a plate. "I think I finally understand what she means when she says we should support each other." He hugged me, looking relieved. "I knew you guys would work it out. Mom always knows best." I leaned into the hug, looking past him at the calendar on the wall. Saturday, the gala. "You're right, Ethan," I whispered. "She's definitely taught me a lesson I'll never forget." Eleanor had no idea that while she was planning her perfect anniversary, I was planning her public execution. She wanted to play the grieving grandmother. Fine. I was going to let her play the starring role in the most viral scandal our town had ever seen. I spent the next 48 hours living a double life that was honestly exhausting. On the outside, I was the good daughter-in-law, showing up to Eleanor's house with a fake smile plastered on my face, helping her coordinate with the caterers and checking the seating charts. But on the inside, I was a cold-blooded assassin. Every time Eleanor touched my shoulder and said something condescending like, "I'm so proud of you for keeping it together, Clara," I just nodded and felt the weight of the burner phone photos in my cloud storage. She had no idea that her perfect life was currently being compressed into a single 32-gigabyte USB drive sitting in the bottom of my gym bag. On Wednesday, I decided to give Ethan one last chance. I didn't want to burn down the whole house if I didn't have to. I loved my husband, or at least I loved the man I thought he was before his mother started whispering poison in his ear. I made his favorite dinner, pot roast and mashed potatoes, and waited for him to come home. When he walked in, he looked stressed, his tie pulled loose, his eyes scanning the room like he was looking for a reason to leave again. "Ethan, can we talk? Like, for real talk?" I asked, setting a plate in front of him. He sighed, sitting down heavily. "Clara, if this is about my mom again, I deadass can't do it tonight. I'm exhausted. The gala is in 3 days, and she's stressed, and Arthur is finally back in town." "It's not about her," I interrupted, sliding my phone across the table. "I need you to look at these." I found them in her closet. "These are messages between your mother and Deacon Silas. They've been together for 7 years, Ethan. While your dad was away on business, while we were at family dinners, she was with him. Look at the timestamps. Look at the photos." Ethan didn't even pick up the phone. He just glanced at the screen, saw a preview of a text message, and shoved the phone back toward me like it was a piece of hot coal. "Are you serious right now? You're still going through her things? You're actually obsessed. Ethan, did you even see the photo? That is your mother in a hotel room in Napa. The same weekend Arthur was at that conference." He stood up so fast his chair screeched against the floor. "Clara, stop. This is high-key insane. You're literally trying to frame my mother for an affair because you're mad she told people about the miscarriage. Do you realize how unhinged you sound? You probably photoshopped those or used some AI tool to make them. You've been acting erratic for weeks, and now you're bringing receipts that look like they came from a tabloid? I can't even look at you right now. Frame her. Why would I do that?" I was screaming now, the frustration boiling over. "She is a hypocrite, Ethan. She is destroying us from the inside while she's out there cheating on your father." "My mother is a saint," he yelled back. "She has spent her whole life serving this family and the church. If you ever mention this again, I'm moving out for good. I'm staying at the hotel until the gala. I need a break from this toxicity you're creating." He grabbed his bag and walked out. He didn't even touch the dinner. I sat there in the silence, listening to his car pull out of the driveway, and I realized it was over. Ethan wasn't just under her thumb, he was brainwashed. He was drinking the Kool-Aid, and there was no way to save a man who didn't want to be saved. He'd rather believe I was a tech-savvy villain than believe his mother was a human being with secrets. An hour later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "I know you were in my phone, you little snake." I checked the logs. "If you say a single word about what you saw, I will make sure everyone knows you're the reason that baby died. I'll tell them you were drinking. I'll tell them you did it on purpose because you didn't want to be a mother. I've already planted the seeds. Who do you think the town is going to believe? A devoted church leader or a girl who can't keep her head on straight?" I stared at the screen, my blood turning to ice. Eleanor wasn't even hiding it anymore. She was dead-ass threatening me. She was going to blame me for my own tragedy to cover up her cheap motel hookups. I felt a surge of rage so intense I thought I might actually black out. She thought she was untouchable. She thought she had the town in her pocket. But Eleanor forgot one thing: she had spent 30 years building a brand based on purity and faithfulness. And in 2025, that brand is a house of cards. I called my best friend, Sienna. Sienna was a total tech wizard. She worked in digital forensics and hated Eleanor more than anyone I knew. I told her everything. The affair, the burner phone, the threat, and Ethan's reaction. "Clara, she is literally a movie villain," Sienna said, her voice crackling with excitement. "Listen, don't say another word to Ethan. If he's that far gone, he's just going to tip her off. We need to go nuclear. You said the gala has a legacy slideshow, right?" "Yeah," I said. "Eleanor wants 30 minutes of photos showing their journey of love. I'm the one in charge of the USB because I'm the tech-savvy daughter-in-law." "Bet," Sienna laughed. "Bring the drive to my place tonight. We're going to make a little edit. We'll keep the first 10 minutes perfectly normal. The wedding photos, the kids, the house, and then, we'll transition. We'll sync the affair texts to the music. We'll put the hotel receipts right next to the anniversary photos from that same year. It's going to be a masterpiece, Clara. A total social execution." I spent the next 2 days in a trance. I saw Eleanor one more time on Friday for the final walkthrough at the hotel ballroom. She was in full queen bee mode, bossing the hotel staff around and complaining that the lilies weren't pure enough. When she saw me, she leaned in close, her breath smelling like peppermint and malice. "Did you get my message, Clara?" she whispered, her eyes glittering with triumph. "I hope we understand each other now. You're going to be a good girl at the gala, and then you're going to fade away quietly. Ethan is already looking at apartments for himself. It's for the best." I looked at her, and I didn't feel the fear she wanted me to feel. I felt pity. She was so convinced of her own power that she couldn't see the cliff she was about to walk over. "I got it loud and clear, Eleanor," I said. "I'm going to make sure the slideshow is unforgettable. It's going to show everyone exactly who you are." She patted my cheek, a gesture that was so condescending it made my skin crawl. "Good. I knew you were smart enough to see reason." Friday night, the town was buzzing. The event's 30th anniversary was the biggest social event of the year. Every church member, every local business owner, and every influential family was going to be there. I stayed at a hotel myself that night. I didn't want to be at the house. I spent the evening with Sienna, watching the final cut of the video. It was brutal. It was undeniable. It was a 7-year timeline of a woman who preached about the sanctity of marriage while systematically destroying her own. "You ready for this?" Sienna asked, handing me the USB drive. "Once this plays, there's no coming back. Ethan might never forgive you." "Ethan already chose his mother over the truth," I said, tucking the drive into my evening clutch. "He chose a lie over his wife and his child. I'm not doing this for revenge anymore, Sienna. I'm doing this because I refuse to be the crazy woman in someone else's fairy tale. If the world is going to look at me, I want them to see clearly." The morning of the gala, the weather was perfect. Sunny, crisp, and beautiful, the kind of day Eleanor probably thought was a sign from God that she was favored. I put on the red dress. It was bold, It was attention-seeking, and it looked like fire. I did my makeup like I was going to war. Red lips, sharp eyeliner, and a look in my eyes that said I was done playing games. I arrived at the hotel early. The ballroom was stunning. White silk everywhere, crystal chandeliers, and a massive projector screen at the front of the room. I walked over to the tech booth where a young guy named Tyler was setting up the audio. "Hey, Tyler," I said, giving him a friendly smile. "I'm the daughter-in-law. I have the updated slideshow here." Eleanor wanted a few last-minute surprises added for the end. "Can you make sure this is the one that loops during the toast?" "Sure thing, Mrs. Vance," he said, taking the drive and plugging it in. "I'll have it queued up and ready to go after the pastor's opening prayer." "Perfect," I said. "And Tyler? Don't preview it. Eleanor wants it to be a complete surprise for everyone, including her. You know how she is about her moments." He laughed. "Oh, I deadass know. She's been writing us all morning. I'll keep it under wraps." I walked back into the ballroom and saw the guests starting to arrive. Eleanor was at the door, wearing a dress that must have cost 5 figures, beaming as she accepted hugs and congratulations. She looked like the happiest woman in the world. Arthur stood beside her, looking a bit tired but proud, the loyal husband who had no idea his wife had been hiding a secret life in his own master closet. Ethan was there, too. He looked at me across the room, and I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes. He started to walk toward me, but Eleanor grabbed his arm and pulled him away to meet a local politician. He didn't fight her. He just followed. The room filled up. 200 people. The air was thick with perfume and the sound of clinking glasses. Everyone was talking about what an inspiration Eleanor and Arthur were. I sat at my table, my hands folded, feeling a strange, calm peace. The fuse was lit. The pastor stood up to start the dinner. He spoke for 10 minutes about the vow of faithfulness and how Eleanor was a pillar of the community. He asked everyone to bow their heads in prayer. As I closed my eyes, I heard the projector hum to life behind me. "And now," Eleanor's voice boomed through the microphone as she stepped onto the stage, "before we eat, I want to share a journey with you. 30 years of love, 30 years of family, and 30 years of being true to the one God gave me. Arthur, this is for you." She gestured to the screen. The lights dimmed. The music started, a soft, romantic piano track. The first photo appeared, Eleanor and Arthur on their wedding day, looking young and in love. The crowd let out a collective, "Ah." I leaned back and took a sip of my water. I watched Eleanor's face in the glow of the screen. She looked so satisfied. So perfect. She thought she was watching her legacy. She had no idea that in exactly 3 minutes, the legacy was going to turn into a crime scene. The ballroom was so quiet you could hear a pin drop, but the air felt like it was charged with enough electricity to power the entire city. I sat at my table, heart pounding against my ribs like a sledgehammer, watching the first 5 minutes of the slideshow. It was pure Eleanor. Romantic filters, soft piano music, and every single photo of her and Arthur looking like the poster couple for Godly Marriage. People were literally dabbing their eyes with white silk napkins. I looked over at Arthur. He was holding Eleanor's hand, his eyes misty. Beside them, Ethan was finally looking at me, but his expression was cold, like he was still waiting for me to stand up and make a scene so he could officially call me crazy in front of the whole town. I just smiled back and took a sip of my sparkling water. I wasn't going to make a scene. I was going to let the screen do it for me. The transition happened right at the 10-minute mark. The romantic piano music didn't stop, but it started to slow down, getting deeper and darker until it felt like the soundtrack to a horror movie. On the screen, a photo appeared from 5 years ago, the Vance family reunion in Lake Tahoe. It showed Eleanor smiling in a sun hat. But then, the screen split. On the right side, a new image appeared. It was a receipt from a boutique hotel only 3 miles away from the reunion. The guest name? Eleanor Vance. The room? A single king bed. The checkout time? 3 a.m. A confused murmur rippled through the room. I saw Arthur lean forward, his eyes narrowing as he read the text on the screen. He looked at Eleanor, who was still smiling, though her face had gone a little stiff. She probably thought it was a glitch. Then, the next slide hit. This one wasn't a photo. It was a screenshot of a text message, blown up so big that even the people in the back row could read it. Arthur thinks I'm at the spa, Silas. I can't wait to feel your hands on me again. Counting down the minutes. Red heart. The gasp that went through the ballroom was physical. It was the sound of 200 people losing their breath at the exact same time. I looked at Deacon Silas. He was sitting at table 4 with his wife and 3 kids. He had gone from his usual, pious, tan to a sickly shade of gray. His wife was staring at the screen, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. Tyler. Shut it off. Eleanor shrieked, finally snapping out of her trance. She lunged toward the tech booth, but the doors were locked from the inside. Sienna had made sure of that. Tyler, the tech guy, was frantically pushing buttons, but the system was on total lockdown. Sienna had installed a kill switch that only she controlled from her laptop at home. Arthur, it's a prank. It's a hack. Eleanor screamed into the microphone, her voice echoing through the room, shrill and desperate. Clara did this. She's unstable. She's trying to destroy us. But the screen didn't care. The next slide was a photo of Eleanor in a black lace negligee, the kind she'd told me was sinful for a woman to wear. She was taking a selfie in a bathroom mirror. The background? The exact same wallpaper as the master suite at the Napa Valley Resort from their 25th anniversary trip. Beside it was a text from that same night, I'm pretending to have a migraine so Arthur stays in the room. Meet me at the bar in 10. I need a real man tonight. The room was absolute chaos now. People were standing up, pulling out their phones, recording the screen. The saintly Eleanor Vance was being dismantled in 4K resolution. I saw the pastor, the one who had just called her a pillar of the community, staring at the screen with his mouth hanging open. The Deacon Silas thread continued to scroll. It was 7 years of hotel bookings, jewelry receipts for items Arthur had never seen, and messages that were so explicit the older ladies in the room were covering their ears. You monster! Deacon Silas's wife suddenly screamed, standing up and throwing her full glass of red wine across the table. It didn't hit Silas, it hit Eleanor's silk dress as she tried to run off the stage. The red liquid splashed across the cream fabric like a bloodstain. Arthur stood up slowly. He didn't scream. He didn't yell. He just looked at the screen, then at his wife, who was now covered in wine and frosting as she stumbled near the massive anniversary cake. He walked toward her, his face a mask of cold, hard stone. Eleanor reached for him, her hands shaking, her mask completely gone. Arthur, please. It was a mistake. I was lonely. You were always working. Arthur didn't say a word. He reached down, grabbed his wedding ring, and twisted it off his finger. He held it up for a second, then dropped it right into the middle of the 3-tier white cake. 30 years, Eleanor, he said, his voice carrying over the microphone she was still clutching. I gave you 30 years. And you couldn't even give me one night of honesty. You didn't just cheat on me. You cheated on this entire town. You cheated on God. He turned and walked out the back doors of the ballroom. He didn't look back once. Not at her, not at the guests, and not at his son. Eleanor let out a sound that wasn't even human, a high, jagged wail of pure rage and panic. She turned toward me, her eyes wild, her hair falling out of its perfect bun. You ruined everything. You're a liar. You're the one who's broken. You couldn't even keep your baby because you're cursed. The room went dead silent again. The miscarriage comment was the final nail in her coffin. Even the people who might have felt bad for her a second ago now looked at her like she was a demon. You don't say that to a woman who just lost a child. Ethan finally stood up. He looked at his mother, then at me. I could see the gears turning in his head, the mama's boy programming finally crashing into the reality of the evidence. He looked at the screen, where a text from Eleanor to Silas read, "Ethan is so easy to control. He believes everything I say. He'll never find out about us." Ethan's face went from pale to a deep, burning red. He walked up to the stage, but he didn't go to help his mother. He walked straight to me. "Clara," he whispered, his voice cracking. I didn't know. I should have believed you. I'm so sorry." I looked at my husband. I saw the guilt, the regret, and the fear. But I also remembered the 7 days of hell. I remembered him moving into the guest room. I remembered him telling me I was unhinged, while his mother called me a failure. I reached into my clutch and pulled out the USB drive I had swapped out earlier, the one with the original, legacy, photos. I handed it to him. "You wanted to believe in her so badly, Ethan," I said, my voice loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "Well, now you can keep the photos. But you don't get to keep me. You chose the lie. Now you have to live with the fallout." Eleanor was still screaming, trying to grab the microphone back from the tech crew who had finally forced the booth open. She was flailing, her heels catching on the white silk draping of the stage. She lunged one last time, trying to reach for Ethan, but her foot slipped. She went down hard, face first, right into the middle of that massive, expensive anniversary cake. White frosting exploded everywhere. It was in her hair, on her designer dress, smeared across her face like a clown mask. She sat up, gasping for air, looking around at the 200 people who were now laughing, pointing, and live-streaming her ultimate humiliation. The saint of the county was literally covered in sugar and lies. I stood up, smoothed down my red dress, and walked toward the exit. I didn't look back at the cake. I didn't look back at Silas, who was being dragged out of the room by his wife's brothers. And I didn't look back at Ethan, who was standing in the middle of the ballroom, holding a USB drive and looking like the loneliest man on earth. As I walked through the hotel lobby, the cool night air hitting my face, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Sienna, mission accomplished. The video is already trending on the local Facebook group. Clout-chasing Eleanor just became the main character for all the wrong reasons. "Were we meeting for drinks?" I smiled, a real, bone-deep smile. I had lost my baby, and I had lost the man I thought was my husband. But for the first time in years, I hadn't lost myself. "I'm on my way, Sienna," I whispered to the night. "The show is over." The morning after the gala, the town was high-key obsessed. Eleanor hadn't just lost her reputation, she had become a local meme. Video of her face planting into that 3-tier cake was all over TikTok and Facebook by sunrise. The saint of the county was officially cancelled, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one being gaslit. The church board held an emergency meeting that Sunday and stripped Deacon Silas of his title. Eleanor was banned from the premises. Her 30-year reign of fake purity was dead in the water. But the real drama was just starting at home. Arthur didn't go back to the house. He checked into a hotel, hired the meanest divorce lawyer in the state, and froze all the joint accounts. He was dead-ass done. Eleanor was left in that big, empty house with nothing but her ruined silk dresses and the jewelry she'd hidden from the man who actually paid for her life. Then there was Ethan. He spent the next week blowing up my phone. He sent me novels via text, crying about how blinded he was and how he wanted to fix us. He even showed up at Sienna's apartment with a massive bouquet of lilies, the very flowers I told him I hated because they reminded me of funerals. "Clara, please," he begged, standing in the hallway looking like a total mess. "I know I was a simp for my mom. I know I didn't have your back. But I love you. We can move past this. We can try for another baby. I looked at him, and honestly, I felt nothing. No anger, no love, just a deep sense of cringe. Ethan, you watched me drown for weeks, I said, leaning against the doorframe. You chose a woman who threatened to blame me for our baby's death. You called me unhinged while I was holding the receipts in my hand. You didn't just fail as a husband, you failed as a man. There is no us to fix. The only thing you can do for me now is sign the papers and stay out of my way. He tried to cry, but I just shut the door. I wasn't falling for the mommy's boy tears ever again. The divorce was surprisingly quick. Since I had proof of Eleanor's harassment and Ethan's complicity in the emotional abuse, my lawyer made sure I got the house and a solid settlement. Arthur actually showed up to the final hearing. He didn't speak to Ethan or Eleanor, but he walked over to me and gave me a quiet nod. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, Clara, he said, his voice sounding hollow. She was a master at the game. I hope you find the piece she tried to steal from you. Eleanor didn't go quietly, though. She tried one last, clout-chasing, move. She went on a local podcast to try and clear her name, claiming she was a victim of a digital setup and that I had coerced Deacon Silas into the affair just to frame her. It was so delusional it didn't even gain traction. People just laughed at her in the comments. She ended up having to sell her designer clothes on Poshmark just to pay for a tiny 2-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town. No more lilies, no more chandeliers, and definitely no more swan napkins. A few months later, I was finally starting to feel like myself again. I had repainted the house, no more beige, no more Eleanor-approved neutrals. I filled the rooms with colors I loved. I even started a small garden in the backyard. One evening, I was sitting on the porch with Sienna, watching the sunset. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from a people you may know list. I saw Eleanor's profile. Her new profile picture was a grainy selfie in a dimly lit room, her hair looking thin, her perfect skin gone. She looked like a ghost. I didn't feel happy seeing her like that, but I didn't feel sad either. I just felt finished. I hit block and put the phone face down. You okay? Sienna asked, handing me a glass of wine. Better than okay, I said, taking a deep breath of the fresh evening air. I'm finally free. I realized then that the miscarriage wasn't just a loss of a baby, it was the loss of a life that wasn't meant for me. It was the fire that burned away the lies so I could see the truth. I missed my baby every single day, and I still had a small memorial in the garden for the one we lost, but I knew that I was now the kind of woman that child would have been proud of. I wasn't the crazy daughter-in-law. I was the woman who stood her ground and won. The town still talks about the Gala Massacre of 2025. It's become a legend, a warning to every Karen in the county that you can only push someone so far before they show the world who you really are. As for me, I'm busy living. No drama, no gaslighting, and definitely no mothers-in-law. The show is officially over, and for the first time, I'm the one writing the script.